Rightio, lecture 3 for sports nutrition, looking at phytochemicals and exercise. That's what we've got here. So we're going to have a look at phytochemicals as an example of plant secondary metabolites. So we'll have a look at them. We'll have a look at polyphenols in a little bit more detail, and then have a look at a small number of studies where people have tried to assess the effect on exercise and exercise performance and related issues. So phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are chemicals produced by plants as part of their secondary metabolism. More on this in a moment. They're often produced as defense chemicals in response to predation. Plant secondary metabolites are numerous chemical compounds produced by the plant cell through a range of metabolic pathways derived from their primary metabolic pathways. The term was first coined by Kossel in 1891 in his classic study on the chemical composition of the cell, and also another classic study, plants and snails, hence the picture of the snail there. And Stahl also demonstrated that plant secondary metabolites can protect plants from snails and other herbivores. He did that in 1888. Stahl was a pioneer in the field of experimental ecology, and he suggested that chemical defensive systems evolved in response to selection pressures present in the environment, which makes perfect sense. And if you want to know more about this, there's a good link there to lots of stuff about plant secondary metabolites. Phytochemicals, as it says there, they're not essential in human nutrition, at least as far as we know, but they are bioactive in humans. In many cases, their biological role in the human body is not clear. In some cases, we don't even understand their structures. And although many probably have some beneficial effects, there are a large number of scientifically unsupported claims with respect to phytochemicals. It's one of those areas where people make a claim and then it gets inflated out of all proportion to the evidence supporting it. It's also worth pointing out that consumption of some phytochemicals may lead to adverse health effects, both in acute and chronic terms. As discussed earlier, you should consider well-founded review studies such as a Cochrane collaboration rather than individual studies. See this link for review of flavonoids, and note the author's conclusions. Phytochemicals are normally classified into 6 main categories as shown here, and there's quite a complex list of them, and no doubt each of these ones in the third column could be broken down further. So there's a lot of these about, is the upshot of this slide. Another view of the field. The areas of most interest these days is probably polyphenols, with flavonoids getting a lot of interest. More on them momentarily. So this is a summary of the claimed potential classes of health-related actions of phytochemicals and some proposals for mechanism of action. In both cases, there's an awful lot of evidence lacking. Linking consumption of a particular phytochemical with some health effect is very difficult to do, and many studies perhaps overstate the benefits. In fact, certainly many studies do that, and also conclusions drawn in the wider media, in the blog sphere, and in influencers and all this sort of stuff. They are plant metabolites, of course, and if nothing else, eating 5 a day at least, portions of fruit and veg is a good idea. You may well remember this stuff from first year, when we reviewed food colours and looked at the classes of molecules that produce colour in plants. Many of these are potentially phytochemical. Again, a reminder of the main classes of plant pigment. Going back to first year again. Okay, carotenoids, they're a considerable body of interest. Here's the most famous one, which I'm sure you all remember, beta-carotene. The yellow colour is marigolds is due to the presence of carotenoids in chromoplasts concentrating the tips of the flowers. Beta-carotene, of course, is involved in human health in that it is metabolised in our bodies to produce retinol, vitamin A. It has been reported to have a range of potential phytochemical effects. Again, strong evidence is a bit hard to find. And there is some evidence going the other way. There was a very famous study done on beta-carotene and smokers and lung cancer, and it had to be cancelled partway through because smokers who were being supplemented with beta-carotene were developing lung cancer at a higher rate. So, like all these things, it's complicated. Again, you will remember polyphenols as being the substrate for polyphenol oxidase in the second year, the enzyme responsible for browning and damaged fruit. But a reminder, phenols are aromatic rings with at least one OH, that is to say phenol group substituted into the ring. Polyphenols contain at least 2 phenol groups. As we can see, many of them are complex. If you're interested, click on the SAL link for lots more background reading if you want to dig a bit deeper into this. Again, another summary, in this case of the polyphenols. They are a very important class of plant secondary metabolites, but it's worth reminding ourselves again that plants evolve the production of these substances for their own reasons. We may find benefits from them, we may have selectively bred in ways that produce more of these substances, but the plants evolve them for their own purposes. Resveratrol is one of the most widely studied flavonoids. It's found in the skin of red grapes, cocoa, red wine, and a range of other sources. And there's a picture of the molecule, which we can see is a polyphenol. Okay, so it may have some health benefits effects and may be linked to the French paradox. The French paradox is the observation that the French, particularly those living around the Mediterranean, have relatively low rates of coronary heart disease and consequent mortality. It's very difficult to untangle causal links here, and many factors may be involved, including that the French paradox itself is an illusion related to the way France records such deaths, and there are other issues. Most studies are lab-based studies. As we've discussed before, it's very difficult to demonstrate cause and effect for substances we ingest as food. We don't know about persists in the body, we don't know about it's metabolized, and again, there may be some evidence it potentiates some cancers, including breast cancer. Okay, so Kokavaya, Joel Bonnie Lieberman from the Center of Science and Public Interest in Washington in 2005, and this arrives on your desk. A comment's understandable. It was initially marketed pretty much as a health food, with claims being based on its relatively high flavanol content. Even in America, at least back then, this was unsupportable. The advertising campaign was modified. That was then. Okay, there's Bonnie Lieberman's quote there, which I didn't know was hidden. Even then, that was back then. Recently, the product has made a comeback with many interesting claims that would not be allowed in the EU or currently in the UK, such as experience better memory in just 8 weeks. It's a no-brainer. Maybe that's entirely true. But click on the Kokavaya link, have a look what they've got, see what they say. It looks like a nice product. So, polyphenols and exercise. It's been a couple of years since I reviewed the literature, and it was only just a grab sample, really. There's bound to be more up-to-date studies in these areas. So the background of this study was that the beneficial properties of tea polyphenols have been extensively studied. However, less attention has been paid to their effects, especially anti-inflammatory effects during exhaustive exercise. Got a picture of a rat there, but it's a wrong rat. It's a P. No, it's a wrong rat. Here's the right rat. This inquisitive-looking rodent is a Sprague Dawley rat. This is a go-to rat for many studies, and it is calm and easy to handle. In this study, there was a control group, rats just lounging around, and 2 exhaustive exercise groups. These 2 exhaustive exercise groups performed a single exhaustive swimming test with a load equivalent to about 3% of their body weight tied to their tails, and the time before they started to sink was recorded. Now, don't blame me, it wasn't my study. One group had been fed a diet including tea polyphenols, the other just the standard diet, and of course there was the placebo group as well. So the conclusions. The study indicated that tea polyphenols could significantly prevent the rats from fatigue, inflammation and tissue damage induced by acute exhaustive exercise. How generalizable these are to rats in other situations, let alone other species, is of course an open question. This review was based on the premise that although moderate physical exercise is considered an essential component of a healthy lifestyle, it leads the organism to adapt itself to different stresses. Exercise, especially when exhaustive, is also known to induce oxidative stress, inflammation and muscle damage. So the study looked at some polyphenols that suggest to have protective effects on exercise-induced muscle damage and oxidative stress. including quercetin, catechols and other polyphenols, including resveratrol. So moving on. It's often the case the authors were unable to draw any clear and definitive conclusions. So again, have a look at the study if you're interested, and we'll note that not supported by human trials. Okay, blueberries. This study examined whether blueberries or vitamin C consumed for 7 days in randomised double-blind crossover design would attenuate oxidative stress and cytokine changes versus placebo. Cytokines are a category of signalling molecules that mediate and regulate immunity and inflammation. See the link for full details of the study, which involved 9 subjects running in a hypothermic 35 degrees centigrade environment until they reached a core temperature of 39.5 degrees centigrade. Plasma samples were analysed for a range of molecules associated with oxidative stress. So in this case, it came to a reasonably firm conclusion, but not the qualifier maybe. The study indicates that blueberry supplementation may be beneficial for athletes exercising in hot environments. Okay, the final one in this brief and very non-systematic survey. This study looked at the potential impact of a polyphenol supplement, Perfload, and you can link through to Perfload and find about it there, on peak metabolic power output. It involved 2 30-minute bouts of cycling, the Wingate test, which you may well be doing in the sports nutrition labs, with anaerobic metabolic power production being measured. The conclusions noted that this clinical investigation on Perfload demonstrates it can be, similar to training benefits, a way of helping improve metabolic and physiological pathways involved in development of maximum power during high intensity exercise. Though the results there was a few caveats on the result. Again, have a look at the survey if you're interested. Here's their results. Here's a summary of their evidence. I have to say the paper makes little of the results, showing that the effect aligns with placebo over the full duration of the exercise. Okay, that's all for this. Thanks for listening.